You are probably using Opus 4.7 wrong, and it's most likely costing you your usage limit. Because the guy who built Claude just dropped 6 tips to fix your Opus 4.7 issues. And he's been using it for weeks. This is pretty much the cheat sheet on how he uses 4.7. And by the way, I'm Marlon. All I do is this AI stuff all day long. I'm gonna break down each and every tip so you actually know how to use 4.7 and not burn through your usage limit. And here's the best part. Some of these tips will absolutely 10x your productivity. And given that it's such a new model, most people don't even know about this just yet. So let's fix that with the first and most impactful tip. So let me actually show you how crazy our first tip is. Now, this is auto mode. So it's a new feature they just rolled out, and it's essentially no more permission prompts. Okay, so the model, there's no back and forth between you and the model. The model's going to do it all for you. More importantly, Opus 4.7 loves doing complex, long-running tasks like deep research, refactoring code, building complex features, iterating until it hits a performance benchmark. Okay, so it's a safer alternative. In this mode, permission prompts are routed to a model-based classifier to decide whether the command is safe to run. If it is safe, it's auto approved. For auto mode, as you can see here, it's already toggled auto mode. Okay, just update whatever you're using. I'm using anti-gravity right now. So if it doesn't work or you don't have anything showing up here, you actually have to come to settings, go to Claude Code, and you're gonna have to enable allow permissions mode. So you're about to see the contrast between auto mode, which is just right here, auto mode. So Claude will automatically choose the best permission model for each task. As you can see, our effort level is low, not to burn too many credits for this experimentation. I'll explain that to you in 1 minute. And we are on the default model, which is obviously our Opus 4.7 that just got released. As you can see here right now, we are on Sonnet and we're in plan mode. We're going to both use the exact same prompt. Act as a world-class website builder. You're going to build a very sophisticated high-end website for a SaaS company called Ocean One. We're going to give it to this one as well. This is the beautiful thing about auto mode. So I'm just going to shoot this off here and let's just see the difference between each mode here. It becomes important for prompting purposes because while we're still in plan mode, right? Maybe you should plan first. I'm a big advocate of that. But as you can see here, it is asking us some questions. Auto mode is not, it's just doing the work. So this is where you do want to have the proper documentation so that you do feel comfortable just essentially giving the model, giving your employee all the proper documentation so that it can go from A to Z. So we can see here, this side of things, auto mode is just going through and basically doing its thing. So this is already built. And this here is, again, as you can see, it's taking its time. So again, with Opus 4.7, we have a tremendous lift in image reasoning. So this all is on the back end of 4.7. In a matter of maybe a minute, again, we didn't provide the proper documentation, so our directory was empty, but just do that. And when you're comfortable with a certain workflow, if you've done it before, or you just know essentially how the tools work, auto mode is absolutely fantastic. Again, look how quickly it made us this. And again, now we do have the combination with Opus 4.7 and auto mode. It's absolutely, it's amazing. So as we can see, this basically just finished. This is still going and doing its thing. So look at the difference, okay? So this is 4.7 as you just saw. And this is the Sonnet model. Okay, so it's just essentially a landing page. Yes, it is on Sonnet, not Opus 4.6. We always did have this, you know, it looks a lot like AI, this type of taste. But now with 4.7, we are very quickly moving away from that. If you have the proper workflow, make sure you have the proper documentation and you can just basically set it and forget it. Let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is the fewer permission prompt skill. So we've also released a new fewer permission prompt skill. It scans through your session history to find common bash and MCP commands that are safe but cause repeated permission prompts. It then recommends a list of commands to add to your permissions allow list. So all you're going to do is /fewer, and it should be one of the first ones to come up. And we're actually going to run both here. So if you do have a very long back and forth chat with these models, this is always a great command to run. NCP candidates, okay? So you can see that after running this, it is giving us some potential options that we can adjust in our permissions. If you do feel like you are going through repeated permission prompts, definitely run this, and then you can just add it to your permissions. So number 3 is recaps. Now recaps are nothing special, they're just as it sounds, but they do provide a lot of insight for some specific reasons. Now, We shipped recaps earlier this week to prep for Opus 4.7. Recaps are short summaries for what an agent did and what's next. But you have to understand where things are going, right? So now we are entering more into the agentic landscape where you're going to have agents run for a very long time. And just like with an employee doing a day's work, you do want some summary potentially at the end of the day of what your employee did. That's what recaps are. Now, the only issue is they kind of just released a lot of this stuff. It actually does not show up just yet. Okay, so it is probably just an update issue. Eventually that will be solved. It only kind of works in the CLI. So as you can see here, we can just simply do recap, and it's going to generate a one-line session recap now. Now let's actually skip to number 5, which is probably the most impactful thing that they've done to Opus 4.7. As we know, they've switched a few things up between 4.6 and 4.7. So with 4.7, it uses adaptive thinking. I'm going to show you all this in 1 second. So instead of thinking budgets with 4.6, now, to tune the model to think more or less, we recommend tuning effort. Essentially, we can use lower effort for faster responses and lower token usage, use higher effort for the most intelligence and capability. So personally, Boris uses X high effort for most tasks. Now, you do have to realize he has probably an unlimited budget of tokens, so he can really do whatever he wants, and max effort for the hardest tasks. So you have to be careful because, again, 4.7 does consume more, especially when you're on the higher tiers of the effort level. Now, when it comes to 4.7, it really is almost like they're kind of pulling or taking kind of the notches away from the model. And they're just saying, here it is. You basically have to gauge it now through prompting. Through my understanding, it is now more important to actually adhere to best practices when it comes to prompting and understand how to really use this model via prompting. Rather than kind of going in the back end and fine-tuning settings and all that stuff, they are slowly taking that away from us. And so with the adaptive thinking, it creates more fluidity. So that just means your prompts have to be better. Now, obviously, we can just use it as a command and just put effort in, and we have access to it here. What we can also do is essentially just pick our mode, and then we have our effort level down here, okay? And you basically just toggle accordingly. So good news, Boris actually just didn't leave us with a X thread. There's actually a prompting best practices. This will be linked down below. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. And there's a few things, obviously, that we need to take into consideration. Now, this is basically just reiterating some best practices, but it again becomes more important with 4.7. So number 1 is response length and verbosity. Now here's why I'm a huge fan also of 4.7. It calibrates response length to how complex it judges the task to be. So if you ever use 4.6 and you asked it like a simple question and it's just very thorough, it's in fact too thorough, probably thinking I could actually just use less of this thoroughness, save on my tokens, and just get to the answer quicker. That's what 4.7 does now, okay? Rather than defaulting to a fixed verbosity as we saw with 4.6, this usually means shorter answers on simple lookups and much longer ones on open-ended analysis. Again, there's more of that fluidity with this model, which I tend to love. It's just you have to know how to control it properly. I did a video on how the top Claude users are actually not hitting their limits, okay? I'll link it here somewhere. One of them is basically telling the model to be concise. Now, I think this telling it to be concise works very well. As I stated, the prior models were very thorough. And again, too thorough. So just telling it concise is kind of the word I like to use. Again, I'll put that video down here, watch it after this. Rather than fine tuning things in the back end, it's just gonna be like, what exactly do you want? Tell me in natural language. And we do that now via prompting. So you're not gonna have the toggles eventually to play around in the back. You're just gonna tell it by natural language what you want. Another thing we need to consider is our calibrating effort and thinking depth. So the effort parameter allows you to tune Claude's intelligence via token spend, trading off capability for faster speed and lower costs, obviously at the lower end, starting with new X high effort for coding and agentic use cases, and use a minimum of high effort for most intelligence sensitive use cases. Do say that max effort can deliver performance gains in some use cases. However, it does show diminishing returns for increased token usage. So only use this, as even Boris suggests, for the most complex questions or tasks you have. X high, it's the new feature they added. Extra high effort is the best setting for most coding and agentic use cases. High, the setting balances token usage and intelligence. Here as well is something they also allude to. If you observe shallow reasoning on complex problems, raise effort to high or X high rather than prompting around it. However, if you are constrained by tokens, They also suggest this: if you need to keep effort at low for latency, add targeted guidance. Again, back to prompting. So this task involves multi-step reasoning. Think carefully through it. So again, we're using prompting to direct the model. And we can have it on low effort, but still there is a bit of a lift if we do prompt it accordingly. Okay, so keep that in mind. The triggering behavior for adaptive thinking is steerable. This is another massive benefit to this model. It's not fixed. You can easily adjust it. If you find the model thinking more often than you'd like, which can happen with larger complex system prompts, add guidance to steer it. As always, measure the effect of any prompting changes on performance. Another thing to note is that this model, compared to past, take the instructions very literal, whether that's good or bad. Claude 4.7 interprets prompts more literally and explicitly than Claude Opus 4.7. Again, you need to be concise, direct, very specific with your prompting as always. But to get the best effort and save on usage, you need to now consider that more than ever. If you found value in that, subscribe. Again, best case, you learn the best technology ever. Worst case, you unsubscribe in the next 5 seconds, 5 weeks. Does not matter to me. As always, my friends, stay human, and I'll see you on the next one.